Coming to you from 4,200 feet in the hills of Oregon is the voice of Chi-Town, the reddest beard in the high desert, your host of the MOA broadcast, Sam Wilson. All right, folks, we got a fantastic show lined up for you today. Let's jump right in and get to it. This is episode 35 of the MOA broadcast. I want to thank you for all of our listeners and supporters, whether it's on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, or Patreon, or wherever else you may get the podcast. Thank you for your support. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, don't hesitate to send us an email at info@gearconvoy.com. And gearconvoy.com is our website. That's where you can find more information about the broadcast, the video version, and all that kind of stuff. So let's jump right into our show highlights. We go to Australia first. A Sydney shark attack by a limb-chomping killer great white shark. Starting fires for fun. A brutal jogger beatdown, and a flare-launching granny goes ballistic. Okay, it's going to be an interesting one, folks. Let's get into it. You know, I was having, I was working on the show last night. We put the show out early morning here in the U.S. so that everybody on their way to work here in the States anyway, on the different time zones, has it available for their drive to work if they want their commute, or when they first get to work and they're having that cup of coffee and they're trying to ease into the day. You got something kind of entertaining and lighthearted to take your mind off the terror that's about to come at your job. But I was watching a movie, Batman 89. Now, if those of you not familiar with the lingo, Batman 89 refers to the Batman film that was made in 1989 or released or whatever with Michael Keaton. That was the first of the Michael Keaton, reboot series when they did it all with Tim Burton and all that. And I mean, what a phenomenal movie. And I mean, that movie was massively successful for a very good reason. It had a good plot, good acting, big stars, all that kind of stuff, excellent direction and so forth. Completely redefined the whole superhero genre. Prior to that, Superman, the movie, had kind of done that as well. It was a massive success. And then Batman 89 came along, and I mean, there were all the licensing deals, the toys, the, Happy Meals and the different fast food franchises and everything. It was a humongous success. And it really had the, kind of set the tone for all these superhero movies to come by having a darker tone and feel to the whole thing. And it's just kind of interesting because Tim Burton directed that one and the sequel, which was Batman Returns. And it is, there's a stark contrast. You can easily tell they're very, very separate films. They do not even feel like the same, they're in the same series almost because they're so different. And from what I've read, and I'm not in the industry, so I don't really know, but from what I've read, the studio had a very tight control on, Burton and the whole thing in the beginning because they were scared to death of how much money it was costing. And, there were big names involved, and it was a totally new thing back then. Superhero movies were not the extremely bankable thing that they became in the coming years. So they had a pretty tight, leash on Burton and everything else. And I think, honestly, that is what helped keep the whole thing true to that dark, gritty theme and feel. Because if you watch the second one, Batman Returns, what happened was, I believe, because of the success of Batman 89, they kind of let Burton have a lot more free reign, and you see a lot more of Burton, in my opinion. That kind of quirkiness and the zany over the top and the the humor and everything else. You see a lot more of that in Batman Returns, and I just don't think that it felt the same. Batman Returns is a solid movie. It's a good sequel. I enjoyed it. I don't even consider it on the same level as Batman 89. And I mean, the villains were just, it almost had that corny kind of campy feel to it that they were trying to get away from the old Adam West TV series, in my opinion. And the movie, I think I pull it up here? Let's see. At the box office, I don't think it came even close to, look at this. The Batman 89, the original film, grossed approximately $413 million worldwide. That was in 1989. That's getting close to $1 billion in today's money. The sequel was still very successful. It did 266.8 million worldwide. That is still very, very good numbers. That would be, sneaking up on 500,000 today. But yeah, it didn't come anywhere close to the original. And I think part of that was part of it. It just, the penguin was kind of goofy and everything was just kind of campy and everything. Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito both did amazing jobs, but the film just wasn't the same. So anyway, now you know what I was thinking about while I was preparing the show for today. Let's go ahead and hop right into it. Now, one of the things we try and keep on track here at the MOA broadcast to keep it from becoming just a news show or commentary. And as you know, we steer clear of politics. We report on things that get political in nature. That's unavoidable. But we don't get into the political side and support one or the other. We just basically give you the facts and let you do what you want with that information. But the roots of the show really boil down to make it out alive, a survival and preparedness based show. So the question is, can you start a fire? And, on almost all the bushcraft and outdoors forums and knife forums and everything, fire is always the number one skill. It usually goes fire and knives and stuff like that are the two most talked about topics. And with good reason, they're both extremely important. So, but my point is, as far as this show, I've tried to not just do the exact same thing that you can get everywhere. Like if I wanted to talk about, guys love firearms. I, have and own firearms and so forth, like many of you do, and for various purposes. If I want to sit here and talk about firearms, man, there are a million shows, podcasts, videos, and everything else to get that info from. So I try and give this a real world feel and not just talk about the same thing that everybody else talks about endlessly. Not that there's anything wrong with those shows or whatever. But, occasionally we're going to overlap with things that are extremely popular, and fire is one of the most talked about topics. So the question is, after all that blathering, let's get to it. If you had to start a fire, let's say it's an emergency situation, okay? And you're a grown man or woman here in 2025, and for whatever reason you found yourself in this emergency situation, could you start a fire if you didn't have things like lighters or a torch or gasoline or something like that? That's an interesting question. Now, a lot of people that practice bushcraft or woodcraft or whatever you want to call it would easily be able to say yes. But if you can't, and here's the thing, I do get it. If you live in a city, the things you encounter on a daily basis, because I've lived in the city and in a number of large cities across the U.S., and I currently live in the middle of nowhere here in the hills of Oregon. You may not ever find yourself in this situation, but what if you do? We read these stories all the time about people that are hiking or they have a car breakdown. There was an article we had, or a story we had a couple of months ago about a guy, him and his family were from San Francisco, I believe. And so they're city dwellers. I think he was a software tech or something like that. They wound up breaking down, actually not too awful far from here, in the hills of Oregon, in the snow, and they wound up dying. They couldn't get a fire started and everything else. It was a pretty tragic story. But could you do it? Something to think about. And can you do it? What is your lowest base level of tools and requirements to get that fire going? Could you get it going with just a lighter? Could you get it going with just a match? Could you get it going with just a knife and a ferro rod? Interesting things to think about. And here the other thing is, if you don't have those skills, like I heat with wood in the wintertime. So I literally start a fire anywhere from 1 to 5 times a week, or maybe more, if I let the stove go out while I'm away from the house or in the shop or whatever else. Okay, so I'm pretty comfortable with that skill, and I've got dozens of videos of me on my YouTube channel starting fires with ferro rods and matches and so forth to demonstrate my knives and other things. But ask yourself, if you can't do that, if you can, good for you. Don't let it slip, because that is a perishable skill. It's very easy to lose that skill. And if you can't, you should try it sometime. We're not talking about starting fires for arson or forest fires, obviously, but the ability to start a fire in an emergency situation for survival is very important. It also gives you a sense of confidence once you know you can do that, because most people don't think about that. It isn't something that comes up very often, but when it does, you may need it very quickly and very badly. And I'll give you real briefly, when we move on and get into some of our news stories here. One of the drills I used to do whenever I was being trained and whenever I was training myself and so forth, I would give myself a Swiss Army knife And it doesn't really matter which model, but the point is not some big buoy, not some big axe or, a saw, whatever, a Swiss Army knife with a pin blade and one strike anywhere match. And hopefully it was pretty dry that day because one match is not that much. But it really honed, and you had to start the fire with nothing but that. So I would go into the woods or out in the backyard or wherever I happened to be at wherever. And I would take, get my branches, get my kindling. Then you get your tinder, then you get your tinder dust, then you make a tinder pile, and so forth. And you had to get it in one match. And the point is, this is just like painting, okay? Whenever people are painting a house, a car, whatever, everybody wants to get to the point where they start spraying the paint. Let's rock and roll. Let's go, go. But just like building a fire, building a fire, it's all in the prep, okay? The hard part about painting really isn't applying the coating in most cases. If you're a decent enough painter, putting the coating on is actually pretty simple for the most part. Where the difficulty comes in is doing your prep work. If your prep work isn't solid, no matter how good of a sprayer you are or a brush and roller guy you are or gal, the bottom line is it's not going to look good. Same thing with a fire. No matter, how many matches you've got or whatever else your deal is, if you haven't done your prep thoroughly and you don't have a good tinder bundle and you don't have kindling and then the various levels of wood that you're going to feed this thing and you haven't done the preparation beforehand, you're going to have a bad experience. Now think about that. If it's that difficult, because most people when they go out and try this the first time, if they're not used to doing it, they fail miserably. It takes several matches or they got to get some newspaper or lighter fluid or gasoline or whatever. That's in your backyard. Now think about if you're actually in a situation where you need to start a fire for an emergency purposes to keep warm or whatever else. It's not going to be so easy and the pressure is going to be on. I saw one of those survival shows, I don't know, it was several years ago. And this guy, and I'm not picking on him, I don't remember his name. It was one of these survival, shows, contests where they go out there in the woods and do all this stuff. And he did everything textbook wrong. And one of the things he did was he was using his multi-tool, the knife blade on it to make some tinder. And because he was very cold and his hands are shaking and so forth. And he wound up just slicing his hand open because he was trying to hurry. And sliced his hand open bad. He was bleeding everywhere. Think about that. You're in the middle of nowhere where you can't dial 911. So anyway, that's the old saying, poor preparation makes for whatever it is, piss poor performance, yada, yada, yada. That's the thing though. It's all about the prep. Just like painting or just like a lot of things in life, really cooking, same kind of thing. It's all about the preparation. So, go out there and practice that. And when you get to where you can do it, and I'm not saying it's some monumental achievement, but when you get to where you can make your fire with, one match and your pocket knife, that's a pretty good spot to be in. You're going to have some confidence. You're going to feel good about that. And that's also a very handy skill. You're going to be fairly proficient at that point. So something to think about. That's our survival talk for today's episode. Let's see. Where are we at on the thing? Okay, let's jump right in. We go to Australia. A shark kills a surfer in Australia who lost a number of limbs, per the police. This article comes to us from USA Today, and I think it was the Sydney Times or some other newspaper. I combined the two articles. But a man was surfing with his friends over the weekend, and a large shark killed him. He was attacked brutally. The incident took place off the northern beaches in Sydney, the New South Wales police force said. 57-year-old father Mercury Salakis said saw the shark that killed him before he lost several limbs in the attack as his friends looked on in horror. A surfer was tragically killed by I don't know if this is accurate or not. Everybody always exaggerates the size of the animal, but experts and witnesses believe it was likely a 20-foot long great white, which would be an enormous shark. Unless I've just gotten rusty on in fact, let's check out real quick. Let's see. What would be the greatest shark? Yeah, there we go. Let's see. What would that wind up being? Okay, the longest great white shark ever reliably measured was about 19 and a half feet long, though some estimates and unverified reports suggest it could be longer, blah, blah, blah. So that means this would be almost or approximately the largest shark ever seen by men. Now, it could be, it's certainly possible, but people always have a tendency, and you can see this in the herpetology world too, people always overestimate the length of snakes and so forth. Oh yeah, it was an 8-foot rattler and all this kind of stuff. And so, it's just a human thing. We all do it. I'm not trying to pick on them. I'm just saying that seemed like an awfully large shark. I doubt it was actually 20 feet long, but it could have been whatever. That does happen to be the record, that was 19 and a half feet, according to that article I just read. Unfortunately, he did lose several limbs in the attack. And let's see here. It was more than 300 feet offshore, blah, blah, blah. 57-year-old man had been surfing with about 5 or 6 friends, and he was found, after the shark attacked, he was found floating in the surf and pulled from the water. Again, they suspect it was a large great white. He was unable to be saved despite life-saving efforts. No other injuries were reported, Duncan said. So that was the chief of police there. Man, what a horrible way to go. Have you ever seen a shark attack? I was watching, I saw it on social media a couple of years ago. There was this group of people somewhere, it looked like either the Mediterranean or maybe it was in Australia. I don't know. But there were several boats floating, and they were all in a circle, kind of like a half circle, and people were jumping in the circle created by the boats in the ocean, obviously, and they were swimming. Dude, this shark came in and got this girl, and it looked exactly like it did in Jaws. This thing was enormous. It came up from underneath, grabbed a hold of her, and the shark just completely rolled over. You saw these huge fins. It made that woman look tiny, and then it was just gone. Just pulled her below the water, and that was it. But I mean, it was absolutely terrifying just to see from the video. And that was one I saw a couple of months ago where it was a poor guy. He was not that far from the shore, and it looked exactly like Jaws in the beginning of the first one. When that girl is swimming and it drags her back and forth, it literally came up. The guy didn't even know it was going. You see him look around, and all of a sudden he starts getting pulled side to side for a couple of seconds, and then he's just screaming bloody murder, and then he's gone. So yeah, horrible, horrible thing. Okay, we go to Lakewood, Ohio now. I couldn't even scream, says the jogger. Jogger brutally attacked in Rocky River Reservation. This story comes to us from fox8.com. In Ohio, Vanny Shukla, and I'm sure I'm butchering that name, 24 years of age, knows the Rocky Reservation well. It's where she trains for races and clears her mind. She was out for a jog on Saturday evening, the trail she loves to jog on, but it soon became the scene of a terrifying attack. Around mile 17 or 18 I was around mile 17 or 18 when all of a sudden, out of the blue, I felt hands on my shoulders and someone was strangling me from behind my neck. I couldn't even scream. Vanny, who is 5'10", female, said a large man wearing a hoodie and gloves grabbed her neck with both hands from behind near the 18-mile marker on the trail just before sundown, then threw her to the ground, where she blacked out. But not before putting up a fight. I tried to reach for my phone to hit the power button, because if you hit it a number of times, it will call 911. But I couldn't breathe. He kept his hands on me, choking me, turned me around, and slammed me on the pavement. He was down there too, and his hands were still around my neck, and I lost consciousness. When she came to roughly 3 minutes later, she ran through the woods for help. Disoriented and bleeding heavily, she managed to call 911, and then a friend who was supposed to meet her at the end of her run. The police met her. So this is interesting because this attack is, let's see, where did it happen? Yeah, this very same trail, a couple of years ago in 2019, they had a double homicide on this very same trail. Now, the Rocky River Reservation murders of Cornell Sledge and Catherine Brown, the two people who were murdered, were never solved. So I don't know if that'd be the place that I'd be hiking and jogging on, but that's what happened. In a statement through Fox 8, Metro Parks Police confirmed the attack, and they said their thoughts go out to the victim. They are committed to bringing the person or persons responsible to justice. They are also increasing patrols in the area. Excuse me. And if you see the pictures online, if you look that story up, you can look up jogger on the Rocky River Reservation. He beat the tar out of her. This lady is just brutalized. She was bleeding heavy, and you got to give it to her. She kept fighting. 5'10" is not exactly small, especially for a female, and she kept going. But yeah, he choked her out. I don't know if anything else beyond that happened. They didn't mention it in the article. But yeah, man, that's scary. Jogging alone, man, especially as a female, can be a very, very scary thing. I had several friends. I've lived in cities, and parks are very popular and common hunting grounds for thieves, rapists, and murderers, apparently. And I had a couple of friends who got mugged in parks. And they were male. So keep that in mind, folks. That's one of the things we always talk about is the situational awareness. And again, this isn't some complex military term. It doesn't mean you got to go around with a pistol and night vision goggles or, all those kind of weapons and everything else. Situational awareness is basically being aware of your surroundings and being prepared. Not just being aware, but also thinking, if this, hypotheticals, if this happens here, what am I going to do? If I see somebody coming out of the woods or the brush running at me, what am I going to do? If I hear a scream, somebody else screaming for help, what am I going to do? Am I going to run for help? Am I going to call for help on my phone first? Because what if you get there to help and you get overpowered also? We had a story a couple of months ago here on the MOA broadcast where that exact thing happened. Somebody was getting murdered in a park. It was a state park this time, but still, it was a park, and somebody heard it. And instead of calling 911, and again, I'm not judging, I wasn't there, but they did not call the police. They ran to go help. They got slaughtered too by the psychopathic murderer. So keep that in mind when you run to help. Obviously, you want to help your fellow man out, but be smart. And that situational awareness is extremely important. Now, maybe there's nothing this lady could have done. The guy may have been very well hidden, and he just, pounced like a cat when she came around a corner or whatever. I don't know. But never hurts to review. It's like one of the things I always talk about, and then we'll move on here. When you get in your car, I can't tell you how many people have laughed at me because I do this, but as soon as I get in my car, I hit the door lock button and lock the doors. Because that's an easy thing, especially if you're going to be driving in town where you stop in traffic. I've seen so many videos and read so many news stories of people that have walked up to cars at stoplights and just opened the door and either pulled somebody out or shot or stabbed them right there. If they had had their car door locked, the same thing may or may not have happened, but they at least would have bought themselves a little bit of time to react. So, something to think about. Now, let's see where we at on time on this one. All right, we got time. After this, we got one. Yeah, that's perfect. Let's do our MOA We're going to do another brief segment, and we'll expand on this one in a later episode, or maybe the next episode. But our MOA preparedness segment, wood skills, navigation, and orientation. Now, again, keeping with the self-reliance and preparedness theme of the show, do you know how to navigate with a map and compass? And if you say yes, could you prove it right now? Could you get up and navigate with a map and compass? I'm not talking GPS. I'm not talking electronics. I'm not talking your phone. Could you navigate with a map and compass? I got to tell you, the vast majority of people that I have been around absolutely cannot. And it's not necessarily through any fault of their own. Most people don't ever need that skill. But if you're trying to build your repertoire, your toolbox of preparedness skills and self-reliance skills, why wouldn't you pick that one up? It's not that hard to do. You don't even have to go, honestly, and buy anything anymore. Used to, you have to go to courses or take classes or go somewhere or buy books to teach you how to do it. Guys, YouTube and the internet are an amazing resource. Amazing. You can learn all of this stuff very quickly and very easily. Even a rudimentary knowledge of how to use a map is gonna again, just like being able to build a fire, will boost your confidence and make you more prepared for what may come. You never know whenever electronics may go down. This has happened to me. I had I was on a backpacking trip several years ago with several guys. They're all really nice guys. I wouldn't call them much for woodsmen, but they were nice guys. And anyway, that's not a slight. It's just the way that it is. So for the first time in my life, while going on a backpacking trip, I let somebody else do the preparation for the maps and everything else. Normally, when I go on trips myself, I get all the USGS maps. I have everything set up, and I'll have redundancies. I'll have paper maps and multiple compasses. I'll have GPS unit and my phone. I'll have all this stuff loaded up so that if one fails, I've got layers of redundancy. I can't get lost. So the other guy told me he was going to take care of the maps. No problem. We're all good. I get there and I'm like, all right, before we head out and leave the trailhead, I want to be able to mark positions and so forth. Let me see the map. Or maybe when we got a few minutes down the trail, he pulls out a map that is literally, he pulled out a map. It was literally just like a computer print off of it's like the drawing of the trail. You know, if you're familiar with going hiking, you know, a lot of times the trailhead, if you go to that particular Forestry Service page or whatever, conservation page, you can find the illustration. That's what an illustration is the right word. It was an illustration of the area and the trail. So it wasn't a real map at all. It was just like basically a high-tech drawing of what it looked like, you know? So, I mean, instantly, and we wound up getting lost temporarily down the trail because the part of the trail was so washed out. This was right after we had a big fire a couple years prior. And it took about 30, 40 minutes, I think, to find the trail again because some of it was just gone. You couldn't find it. The trail markers were gone or burned up or whatever else. And we wound up making out all right. That was, it was interesting. I'll tell the whole story some other time. But the bottom line is, because I did bring along my two GPS units, a GPS unit and a phone, I was at least able to shoot a straight line back to the vehicle when we were all done, and it was all well that ends well. But that's the thing. If without the redundancies, you never know what might have happened. So normally they all would have a paper map and so forth. And this is an interesting question I ask people. Do you even own a compass? I know a lot of people that don't even own a compass at all. And again, I get it. Most people don't go around and navigate and orient by a map and compass. But what if the electronics go down, or if your GPS? Well, I've had GPS be inaccurate before, or somehow the information got mixed up or whatever. It didn't work out. I think was it before they had the automatic software updates or whatever. That was early on in GPS, but you never want to rely just on one or the other. So anyway, that's going to be what we do there. Let's see. I had another story I was going to bring in here about GPS, but we're going to need to move on. We don't want to keep this dragging on too long. Let's go ahead and head to our last story here. For this, we go to Long Island. And folks, we'll get back to the navigation, the map and compass a little bit later, because for those of you may be thinking, why should I ever learn this? It's just like the fire skill. It's going to build your confidence, and you never know when you may be able to need that. And if you already do know how to use a map and or a compass, it may be time to take them out and brush them off and just go for a quick refresher and sharpen those skills, because like the fire building and all these type of skills, they're perishable. You don't keep them sharp, you wind up losing them. Okay, elderly woman shoots man in the face with a flare gun inside gated Long Island retirement community. This story comes to us via the New York Post. An elderly Long Island woman shot her neighbor in the face with a flare gun during an argument inside a gated retirement community, officials said Tuesday. Kathleen Schumann, 76, allegedly shot her 67-year-old neighbor in the face when an argument outside of their homes at the Belmont Vistas senior apartments, not related to the Del Boca Vista, in Florida. That's a Seinfeld joke for those of you that don't get it. In West Babylon on Monday evening, the development confirmed. The spokesperson for the development said, "We are aware of an altercation that occurred yesterday evening between two residents," the management company has said in a statement. The victim, identified by NBC New York as Richard Cutrone, was hospitalized but is expected to make a full recovery. Schumann was also treated for non-life-threatening injuries in the hospital, officials said. So this is horrible. You can watch the video for this. I mean, this guy's face is like, it's not, he doesn't look like he's going to die, but his face is pretty tore up on his right cheek. He wound up going to the hospital, and in the interview, they're asking him, they're like, what happened? He's like, I don't know. There's some kind of disconnect on what caused the problem, but he's like, I've lived in all these different cities, around the country, and thought I was worried about my safety. I moved here to this retirement community, and I wound up getting shot in the face with a flare gun. And there was an altercation, man. I don't know, again, what sparked it all, but he's walking by, either walking his dog or walking, and her doorbell camera caught this. He's walking by, words looked like their exchange, and she pulls out this flare gun and just blasts him right in the face. And then he tackles her and takes her to the ground and subdues her. Crazy, crazy story. Oh, shoot, I forgot. We got one more. Do we got time? Where are we at? Yeah, we got time. Let's go for it. Okay, this one's going to crack you up. I'll see if I can put some pictures up of these stories. Pardon me, folks. My throat is dry. We've had some wildfires out here. It's a little smoky, so my throat has been kind of taking a beating. Unruly Jack-in-the-Box customer gets socked after going ballistic on employees over missing curly fries. This comes to us again from the New York Post. An unruly Jack-in-the-Box customer got a big surprise after she accosted staffers over a missing curly fries order and found herself on the receiving end of a beatdown by fed-up workers. Footage from the fast food from the fast food joint believed to be in Spartanburg, South Carolina, allegedly, or according to the Daily Mail, showed a woman in a black beanie stomp up to the counter, shouting in the employees in the kitchen and demanding her missing items from her 3 combos. Do you understand me? You owe me 3 curly fries. You left my sister's, she yelled in footage circulating on social media. Fix my, or I will blow this whole up. Do you understand me? Fix it now. This lady was apparently very upset. Employees in the back could be heard saying they would get the food, but the woman wouldn't take no for an answer, or yes for an answer, I guess. She started screaming and hurling display signs from the counter at workers and stomping around, terrifying employees. Once the projectile started flying, employees advanced on the woman, who was now irate and cursing, and the woman started in on a taunting dance before swiping a slap at one of them. She then picked up a metal object and hurled it at one of the workers, who dodged it, and then jumped up on the counter and clocked her right in the head with a punch. The blow knocked her cap off and sent her staggering. Then an all-out brawl erupted as employees poured over the counter and began throwing punches. Others joined in and started pulling hair. Bystanders filming the fight just screamed as blows rained down upon them. And the clip cut out as someone yelled, "Don't with black people." I don't know what that has to do. Others could be heard saying, "We got to get out of here," and that the police should be called. The woman continued her irate screaming as she left, shouting, "I will kill you. Don't mess with me, you." It is unclear whether law enforcement got involved or whether the woman ever got her curly fries. All right, folks, that's going to do it. Don't wait to prepare. It may be too late. If you don't make it out alive, you don't make it out at all. Stay safe out there, folks.